Sup, this is True Floater, and I'm doing a review on the Model 1 Iron Man armor. His first and the original Iron Man armor, I think dating back to, like the 1960s? I think it's the 1960s, because Iron Man as a character isn't as old as a lot of people would think. Let me look that up, but I've had this armor for this figure for about a week now, maybe 2 weeks. And it surprised me. I made a statement at the beginning of 2023 that the best Iron Man figure we would probably get would be the Extremis armor. One, because there's a lot of nostalgia and love behind it, and just because they did a good job on it. But I was wrong. I was very wrong. In my opinion, I think this is probably the best Iron Man armor we will get this year. We've already gotten a surprising amount of comic armors, and I doubt they'll give us any more. That would just kind of be, I guess, doing a bit too much. So I don't think we're going to see an Iron Man figure better than this one. And I'll even be a bit more bold. I was very, very impressed with certain things they did with this figure to make it work and to make it as realistic as possible to his original look. This may be one of the best Iron Man figures we've gotten in a couple years. Yeah, it's that good. Like, this figure is probably going to be my top 10 at the end of the year. It's definitely going to beat out a lot of other figures that probably is going to be in my top 10, because it's my favorite Marvel Legend I've gotten this year as well. They did a lot of good things with it, but to talk more about it, get more in depth, let's just get into the review. Alright, first thing, get into the aesthetics of the figure, which is going to be usually the most important part of almost every figure, and why this figure is so good. Oh yeah, and bring up that random fact, yeah, Iron Man debuted in 1963, which is pretty young compared to other characters like Batman and Superman. But yeah, 1963, this character is made and we saw this armor for the first time. But if you look at the sculpt is very faithful to how the armor looked like in the comics. He's very big, he's very bulky. Keeps going leaning to the side a lot, but they did a lot of other unexpected details, like putting the bolting on the side of the helmet. That's something they could have easily forgotten about or not even remembered to do, but they did that. And they did that I don't know, yeah, they did it on the back of the arms, right? Well, you won't see it, but they did it on the legs. Yeah, you can see it on the legs. They put some more bolts on the forearms. They did a lot of small little details you didn't expect them to do or even put effort in. And not just that, but even put battle damage. You can see little scratches on the torso. Same thing for the helmet. You can see little scratches, which they didn't have to do that either, because they could have just made a classic clean shaven Iron Man armor and no one would have noticed or cared. But the fact that they even put the damage on the Mark I because he was trapped in the cave and had to pretty much jump out of a cave filled with a bunch of terrorists shooting at him is just very extremely pinpoint accurate to the origin of this character and the origin of this armor. And one more, and they put battle damage scratches all over on the top of that helmet right there. I think on the legs, yep, they put them near the knees as well. They do a lot. And I think one of my favorite details of this armor is probably the arc reactor. Y'all just saw it, but I think they did a phenomenal job with the arc reactor. This is not their first attempt in making a glowing effect for their arc reactor. They've done it a couple times. And usually it just looks bad, not just for Iron Man armors, but for figures in general. The glowing effect just doesn't look as how they expected it to look. It just looks like a blue highlight, but this actually looks good. The fact that they actually put a highlight of blue on the inside. I'm going to stop this real quick so we can get a better look at it. They pretty much put a little blue on the outer side of the arc reactor itself near the ring, and then little shades of blue on the inside, and make it fade and the fading on it was pretty much perfect. That's what kills this effect for most figures. They don't fade it correctly at all, so it doesn't look like it's glowing. It just looks like a green ring or a blue ring of some sort. They did a great job on this. It looks like, I don't know, an LED on certain good poses, like an actual light. So yeah, the aesthetics on this figure is top notch. This is a 10 out of 10. And now we're going to go into the articulation and get some in-hand looks on it. And I think that probably the biggest pushback you would see on this figure, if anyone would be willing to talk about in their video, is the fact that instead of doing what I guess I would expected when this figure was first announced as a leak, is that they didn't do an ab crunch or a diaphragm joint in this section to get more articulation, which surprised me. But the more I think about it and the more I look at the armor, it actually works in his benefit, and it was a very smart decision only for this version of the character. This armor is a very bulky armor. He cannot move well in the comics. He doesn't. That's why he had to upgrade in the first place, to become more mobile, become quicker and faster, and more athletic. This armor is anything but that. So it makes sense that they went more for design than articulation, when realistically he never actually had any movement in this general area. It was never a thing that existed. So it was actually a perfect choice to do so, because I think you've seen other Mark 1 armors. I could be wrong, but I think Toy Biz, they put an ab crunch on theirs, and sure, you had the articulation that originally was never there, but they sacrificed the look for movement, and I like that they didn't do so in this instance. I think it works well in its benefit, and again, it's those little things they do that makes this figure very phenomenal. And even then, the articulation you can get with just a ball joint in the waist is really good. You can go out that far, he can go back pretty far. And I mean, y'all can see, I showed the main joint that needed to be seen, but he has thigh swivels, bicep swivels, double jointed knees, double jointed elbows, but they don't work so well since he's so bulky. Swivels in the hands, and this average pivot rocker. And don't be tricked, there is no boot swivel. That's just a line for detail. But yeah, let me show you size comparison. Yeah, there you go. Now here's gonna be the negative part of this overall purchase. I usually don't even talk about them anymore in my reviews, especially on Marvel Legends, because most of the times people don't really care about that, but the actual figure itself, and no one ever asked me to, to talk about it. So if y'all want to see them more often, I'm going to talk about the accessories for this, simply because I felt like it was more important for this release to have some pretty good accessories, especially for the importance of this armor, and they kind of dropped the ball on it. I usually don't care because I expect them to be bad at this point. That's why I don't get as many Marvel Legends as I used to, but this kind of disappointed me, because I've seen some other figures they released that had a good amount of accessories, and then this one didn't. So it comes with some reused smoke effects and some open hands. I'm glad we got another pair of hands. I'm trying to think what other hands could he have come with. Fist hands, resting hands. Well, yeah, the Mark 1 didn't really have repulsors from what I can remember, but he's also been retconned where he had flamethrowers. So they could have put something like that, they could have given us flames of some sort to replicate flamethrowers, which, yeah, I'm aware of the original interpretation of this armor. He didn't, but in the Extremis comic, they gave the armor flamethrower, so that would have been a nice accessory, some flame effect or some other accessory that relates back to the 1960s when he still had this armor. There could have been many things they could have added that would have been nice to have, but they didn't. So it's a little disappointing. I get any other Iron Man armor doing this, but this one was a bit more important. But yeah, that's my feelings on that. So my overall final thoughts on this figure, I'm really happy with it. As the figure itself, This may be, I don't know, man. This may be hard. There's nothing really wrong with the figure. It looks great. It looks accurate. It works as well as the armor should. They did things that surprised me. It's a really good figure. Maybe a 10 out of 10 as a figure, but as an overall purchase, is it worth getting? Am I happy with what I've gotten? Normally I would say no, just because of the lack of accessories, but even with the accessories, I was still very impressed with this figure. Again, there's not many negatives I can really talk about. Even the articulation is proper, you know, as what I would expect from this actual character. And I totally didn't talk about it, but if you can already see, you can see the shining of the light. But if you were to look at his eyes, the slit of his eyes, you can look earlier in the video too, and just look at the armor. But if the light shines off it just right, it looks like a pair of eyes looking back at you, which is also another crazy detail they didn't have to do. So overall, I mean, I probably give this the highest I can give it. Again, for the price point and for the amount of stuff they give you, I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10. It's a really good figure. Maybe an 8.5. An 8.5 to a 9 out of 10 is what I'm gonna give this figure. Really love it. It is one of the best armor figures they've made, and it's not even like my favorite armor in my top 10, top 5, but it's a really good armor. So yeah, there y'all go. That's the review. So if you enjoyed that, like and subscribe. Yeah.